Hello guys! Amid China's economic turbulence, Evergrande's collapse unsettled NEO's position. External factors played into NEO's decline, despite its solid foundation. Foreseeing a resurgence, NEO's oversold status and impending updates ignite hope for recovery. I'm talking about something very important that's going on with the Chinese economy. We just saw Evergrande fall very hard, and this led to lots and lots of concerns involving many Chinese tickers. And as a result, we initiated our process of observation, perceiving NEO slide with this news coming out. So I'm going to break down more important details about this, talk about what the data is suggesting for NEO, and then break down something very important about it from a technical standpoint moving. I do anything like this before I get into any more details about this Evergrande situation. So NEO is down 7.22% for the day, taking a massive hit once again. And I warned you guys about this yesterday that we improved our downward visibility. Observing the gaps present on NEO, not to mention the technicals I was talking about this 10.7 area. I'm sure you guys remember me calling that out. And NEO actually closed and hit a low of 10.6, very close to what we were expecting. But the thing about NEO is I want to just ask you a question. Okay, if we time travel just about 2 weeks ago, what was NEO doing 2 weeks ago? NEO was pumping really hard. People were getting so excited about the stock. They were talking about how bullish it was with all this data coming out with very strong deliveries. You guys remember that? It got this monster's pump. It dropped a little bit, then it just continued to pump, right? It just kept going and going and going. And we saw NEO break this high. NEO was due for a technical pullback after forming a bearish divergence. And NEO started pulling back again and again, just a little bit. But it was completely healthy in the very beginning. But then what happened was we started getting lots of negative news, at least for the whole market, because the whole market started cooling off in August. So the whole market started cooling off as we had some negative Fitch Ratings. We had some new downgrades that came out. We had some hawkish tones from the Fed. We had all this negative news that was coming out, shifting sentiment in the market from very greedy to more neutral. And we're getting very closer to fear on the fear increase index. So the market starts slowing down, which is dragging NEO down. But then we all of a sudden get more news involving China that's more concerning, involving what's going on with exports and import prices. They're not really meeting demand, and equally noteworthy, the Chinese economy is beginning to exhibit more noticeable signs of contraction. Now, with all of this going on, NEO started sliding even more, and as the market balanced today, got a small bounce, especially because of Apple dictating the U.S. stock market. Many companies like NEO continue to slide to the downside. NEO is still coming down not because the company is fundamentally weak, not because so much changed from 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, this thing was pumping. Okay, people were excited about the company. It's not because of that. NEO did nothing wrong to cause this fundamental. You have to think about that. Imagine Tesla was pumping and pumping. It's also down pretty hard too. The last couple of weeks, Tesla has been tanking. It went from almost 300 a share. Now it's only at 212. It came down for the last couple of weeks. Is it because Tesla is a bad company? No, it wasn't Tesla's fault entirely. Yes, they did not have the strongest guidance for QQQ that did play a role in this, but it's not just that. There are external factors that affect these companies. So with all this going on, there's another big piece of news that came out just yesterday involving Evergrande. Basically, Evergrande is the second largest property developer in all of China, and basically had lots and lots of debt because of the fact that once again, there were lots of promises that were made that couldn't be kept. I'm just going to keep it simple like that and dead unto that. Many of the American companies out there, especially hedge funds, continued to pour money into Chinese bonds. Okay, the U.S. is heavily invested into China. That's one thing a lot of people forget, billions upon billions of dollars. Now these hedge funds, these other individuals, these different funds, they use Chinese money as collateral when positioning, when taking positions, and in doing so, when there's news like this coming out, it is going to have a very negative effect on the U.S. as well. That's part of why the U.S. stock market sold off hard yesterday. But what's happening is with these issues, not only did this affect the US, this is also going to affect Chinese tickers big time because there are lots of these fears and concerns about the economy, the lack of demand. There's fear of contagion amongst the banks right now. A lot of people are just losing faith in the banks, and people are starting to just try to save up their own money on their own. So it's becoming a lot more difficult over there. They're entering what I believe to be a more severe recessionary environment than that of the US. Unless the US has yet to discuss something like this. And some of these issues are similar to that of 2008, as lots and lots of people over there are continuing to invest in real estate. I was talking about as a very, very strong economic hub for asset growth and etc. This is now becoming important because, with all this demand for housing, it was very hard for these developers to keep up with it, keep different promises, and simultaneously maintain what it is that you had to do. So with this bankruptcy coming out from Evergrande is leading to more concerns amongst other developers, the banks and then the bondholders here in the US, and also other Chinese companies. This is a big hit for the Chinese economy, and it's very unfortunate, right? Because you have to remember who gets affected the most. The everyday people do get affected a lot by this. It really hurts them. And my heart goes out to innocent people who do not have bad intentions. I just want to talk about that was not Neo's fault. This was not Neo doing something horrible. This is not Neo doing anything fundamentally wrong. This is just out of their control. And when things like this happen, there's some fear about dropping demand in the entire economy. We even saw Tesla cut prices again. And with all these fears, they're just coming together and making things even harder for Chinese tickers. Unfortunately, so despite that, Neo had about 65 million in volume. So it's dropping on not so crazy high volume, but it's continuing to look relatively weak. Despite what they're saying about their new pathways and expansions to countries like Sweden, things are still not looking that great from a technical standpoint. It looks like we're approaching this low right here. So we just came down to like 10.7 area. It dropped a little bit more to like 10.2 before getting some kind of bounce, but there should be a bounce coming very, very soon, either from or around 10.2. We're going to be discussing what news comes over the weekend and what happens with the technicals on SPY. It looks like it could be making an attempt to bounce, but what else could help? It would be Nvidia's earnings. Nvidia has earnings approaching very soon. Nvidia stock may start bouncing approaching it, which could help SPY hold up, and if that's the case, if the whole market holds up more upside. If that's the case, SPY get closer to 438. If that breaks, 440 is on the table. And if that's the case, right, that could also help the market reverse for Tesla. It's trying to curl after forming a bullish divergence. Tesla make its way back up to 220, but we'll stay alert to any news updates for the sake of ensuring safety. And then finally, to add on to this for the QQQ, the same thing is going on. We got a nice bounce. Looks like it wants to make its way back up to this imbalance at like 261. So the market looks very bouncy, at least for the time being. But don't forget Jerome Powell is going to speak later this week at Jackson Hole. And then we also have consumer inflationary expectations and Nvidia's earnings. If Nvidia starts pushing, the market could push with it. But then after earnings, if it gets a big rug pull, the whole market could get a rug pull too. So you have to be very careful with that. If the market does try to get some kind of bounce, I mean Neo attempts to follow because Neo is forming a bullish divergence, but not a guarantee. It could drop a little bit more to like 10.2 and then try to bounce. Or it could technically bounce from here. We have this unfilled gap at 11.5. Neo make its way up soon, but it really depends on what news comes out on Monday. It is still possible for Neo to drop lower despite forming this potential bullish divergence. It also formed a divergence right, and yet it didn't bounce because we had a new piece of news. So we're going to have to be very careful. It going down to like 10.2, yet it seems that certain buyers are entering the market due to technical considerations, or it could try to bounce from here. If it does not break below 10.6, if it starts pushing, still, we'll keep tabs on its development as it works towards closing this gap or reaching the gap resistance level around 11.3. If not 11.5, Those are all going to be very possible. So we're going to be discussing these things very carefully and just discuss these levels and be as calm, cool, and collected as possible. Now to my video for tomorrow. I'm going to talk more about NEO, at least some other things going on with it, more specific details, and what other investors are still doing. So I want to make this as clear as possible. NIO is not a dead cat in the water. It is not a horrible company. It's just that it's getting stuck in macroeconomic factors that are outside of its control. Okay? So I want to make that as clear as possible. If there's more bad news, one more drop before I would be expecting some bounce soon anyways. Either drops a little bit more and bounces, or it just bounces from here. It really depends on the news, but I am anticipating a bounce soon, and I think NIO is very oversold, and very soon we're going to talk about some new updates involving their deliveries and such. We're actually just about less than 2 weeks away. All right, so thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more stock predictions and market insights. Remember to turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. Happy investing and see you in the next video.